So this is the self-development with tactics book.
So, this one's gonna be about the butterfly effect. Something that I actually do not know anything about, but you and I, we will both know something about after I've went through all the articles that I've had a look at. But as always, more after the motherfucking intro. Yeah. And this is actually an episode on request from one of my fellow compadres from school. So thanks. I don't know if it is actually a good topic. I don't know if it can lead me to something that is just, really interesting to somebody, nor to me or whatsoever. But yeah, thanks a lot. Shout out to you. Not gonna roast you here. Not as, if I had done it before or something, but nah, just joking. The thing is, I've had a look at several articles on this topic, and it is just heavily influenced by maths. Not math, the drug, but mathematics, the science. And it is still a pretty interesting effect. I've had a look at several effects. There's actually a whole, I think, let's call it article, a whole article on Wikipedia with all the effects there are in, I think it was about psychology, because I had a look at all the psychological effects because I was interested in them. And there is quite a bunch of them. I would say it felt like 500,000 or something. So it's definitely quite a lot. But just for the introduction, and just to maybe have, somehow look at what it actually is and whatever, here is the Wikipedia article, and I'm gonna read it, so that you don't actually have to read it. And it is not a long one. It definitely is not a long one, but it contains a little bit of history and also just the general kind of knowledge that you should have about the butterfly effect. But I would like to go through something else afterwards, because Wikipedia is not always, the best source in terms of understanding something. Therefore, I'm also gonna just try to kind of capture the whole theme and or topic in its whole, so that you and I get both just the very big picture, not only just a very narrow kind of thing. I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, let's actually move on. So as you can see, for all the people that are now listening, it might be a little bit fucked up, because you can't see what I'm showing there, but I'm very sorry for you. But the thing is, for all the YouTube listeners and all the YouTube watchers, here's actually some experiments. Well, okay, the first one is basically a graph or something, and the second one is an experience, and yeah, the caption is experimental demonstration of the butterfly effect with different recordings of the same double pendulum. Pendulum is, what a pendulum is. It's like, okay, if you're playing guitar, you're gonna have a pendulum so that you know what rhythm there is, So in each recording, the pendulum starts with almost the same initial condition. Over time, the differences in the dynamics grow from almost unnoticeable to drastic ones. I've had a look at this. I've had a look at this experiment, and the funny thing is, the captions there inside of the video. So, on Wikipedia, I don't know if it is just always the case, but in this video, you actually have captions. The funny thing is, I think it is just some sort of a song. I don't know, somebody did something funny with it. Pretty funny, so please check it out. I don't know if it is actually the case, because I actually had no sound or something. I don't know, if there's actually no sound on the video, or if it's just me or my PC or whatsoever, but relatively funny, yeah. At first, it definitely is quite always the same. The pendulum just quite looks the same all 6 times as they did this quote-unquote study or what it is. And but in the end, it is really okay, every pendulum is swinging somehow differently, which is really interesting, which we can actually explain after we've went through this article, I guess, I assume, I think, I hope, or everything, everything together. So in chaos theory, which is actually where the butterfly effect is coming from. The butterfly effect is the sensitive dependence on initial conditions in which a small change in one state of a deterministic nonlinear system can result in large differences in a later state. And translated, it just means, okay, small changes, in the first place can lead to something pretty big in the end, which might mean, and therefore I think it is also called butterfly effect, but we just will head to this, I think the history and whatever and why it is named that way, that I think they were talking about I don't know, like some states in the US, I don't know them, but one of them was definitely Texas. So I don't know, let's start with Texas. If one butterfly just swings its wings and claps it together or whatever, it just makes a sound, it just makes some sort of a wave, it just flies. If this one butterfly does something in Texas, the possibility theoretically is there that because of this butterfly, because of this butterfly swinging its wings, there is going to be a tornado in Europe, which means, okay, it is a very, very small thing. It is a very kind of minor thing that is happening, which is the butterfly swinging its wings. And in the end, it just grows to something very big and something that's dramatically big and enormous and whatsoever, and can destroy whole cities and whatsoever. And this is basically what the butterfly effect says, that something very small can lead to something pretty big in the end. But let's actually head to the origin. Because I guess this is actually the next point there is. So the term closely associated with the work of Edward Lorenz, and that's actually also a film. I don't know if Edward Lorenz was also a physician or a mathematician or something, but there's also a movie and or film. It's basically the same, and it is a pretty shitty one. As far as I have seen. At least on Rotten Tomato, the rating is just really bad. But I don't know. I haven't had a look at it, but I assume that it is somehow kind of the same storyline, or the storyline kind of includes the butterfly effect through some kind. I don't know. As I said, I haven't had a look at this particular movie. The term closely associated with the work of Edward Lorenz is derived from a metaphorical example of the details of a tornado. The exact time of formation, the exact path taken, being influenced by minor perturbations such as the flapping, okay, it's called flapping, didn't know that, of the wings of a distant butterfly several weeks earlier. It is also just a time thing. As I was explaining it before, you could have meant like, okay, the butterfly just flaps its wings, and then just immediately afterwards, in another part of the planet, there's gonna be a tornado, just because of the butterfly. But it also has something to do with time. The butterfly just flaps its wings, and then several weeks later, there's going to be a tornado somewhere else, just because of the butterfly. Lorenz discovered the fact when he observed that runs of his weather model with initial condition data that was rounded in a seemingly inconsequential manner would fail to reproduce the results of runs with the unrounded initial condition data. A very small change in initial conditions had created a significantly different outcome. Just before I actually go ahead with the whole thing, isn't it always the case that really small things can lead to something really big, or really small change can really create something really big? For example, I don't know, if there is fucking big building, and one cable, in terms of the electronics from the building is broken or is shitty or is just, I don't know, wasn't just connected the way it should be connected, whatever it is with the cable. So the cable is just broken. It could just really, really, really hurt the whole building. Just because of the small cable, the whole building could burn down. Theoretically, if something happens, if somebody messed up, basically. And yeah, for me, as I'm just thinking about it, it is nothing quite new. It is something completely new in terms of, okay, there is a butterfly and several weeks later there's going to be a tornado, and you can actually say, okay, because of that fucking butterfly, this tornado happened. Or this tornado exists because of the butterfly that just flapped its wings several weeks ago. But yeah. So the idea that small causes may have large effects in general and in weather specifically was earlier recognized by French mathematician and engineer Henri Poincaré. It is Poincar and E with, such a thing on top, you know what I mean. And American mathematician and philosopher Norbert Wiener, like Wien in German, Vienna. Edward Lorenz's work placed the concept of instability of the Earth's atmosphere onto a quantitative base and linked the concept of instability to the properties of large classes of dynamic systems which are undergoing nonlinear dynamics and deterministic chaos. The butterfly effect can also be demonstrated by very simple systems, as we have seen before with the pendulum, just because of very small changes, the pendulum swings completely differently in the end, which also makes sense. The thing is, I don't know how they did the study, this quote-unquote study, because I think it's just an experiment, but I still don't know how they did the experiment. The problem that I'm seeing there is that, okay, you might be doing this experiment without actually kind of, measuring out everything, which means, okay, they picked the pendulum and just swing it the very first time, they swing it by hand, so that it just gets into the swing thing, and then so that it keeps swinging, it just makes sense. You do just have to create some force there, or you have to put some force into it so that it can just translate this force into something else, which is then moving force, which is like, isn't it like Newton's first law or something, or second law? You know what I mean. Therefore, did they for sure always had the exact same initial force as just for every singular experiment or for every singular run? Did they do that? Did they check that? Did they actually be very, very kind of serious with this experiment? Or was it like, okay, we're just going to do it and we're going to just, show how the butterfly effect could work? Because I don't know, I didn't attend the whole experiments. Unfortunately, it would be nice. Should we go through the history a little bit? I don't know how long this one's going to be. But let's actually go through a little bit of the history, and then I'm going to check out another article so that we just, as I said before, get a little bit of a more macro kind of vision of this particular effect. So, in The Vocation of Man in 1800, Johann it is actually Johann Gottlieb Fichte, I assume, says, "You could not remove a single grain of sand from its place without therapy, changing something throughout all parts of the immeasurable whole. Chaos theory and the sensitive dependence on initial conditions were described in the literature in the particular case of the three-body problem by Henri Bourquin, or can't speak French, unfortunately. I can't, at least I can't pronounce it correctly. In 1890, he later proposed that such phenomena could be common, for example, in meteorology. In 1998, Jacques Hadamard, noted general divergency of, now it gets really scientific. I'm not gonna go through that just because it's gonna be just, really not valuable, neither to me nor to you, because I can pronounce it, you can understand it. Therefore, let's check out if I can find the other articles. Yeah, well, IBM says, and by the way, the butterfly effect, I can show you the movie. It is a drama or thriller, and the IMDb is 7.6 out of 10, which is okay, I guess. And the Rotten Tomato is 33%. Google user said that 93% liked the movie, so I do not know. And it's actually featuring Ashton Kutcher. Or Ashton Kutcher is starring in this movie. Sounds great. Sounds really great. It was released in 2004, at least in Austria. It might have been, 2000 and... Well, no. Probably was 2004 as well as just in the US, I guess. But, I've seen another article from the American scientists. I hope they're going to explain it in a different way. I hope they're going to just have it in a little bit of a different way. So nearly 45 years ago, during the 139th meeting of the American Association for Advancement of Science, Edward Lorenz posed a question. Does the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil set off a tornado in Texas? The answer to the question probably differs from what you have heard. The concept referred to as the butterfly effect and has been embraced by popular culture, where the term is often used to emphasize the outsized significance of minute occurrence, as in the 1990 movie Havana, in which Robert Redford, playing the role of Jack Whale, a gambler with a knack for math, proclaims to his coster Lena Olin, that a butterfly can flutter its wings over a flower in China and cause a hurricane in the Caribbean. Lawrence, the mild-mannered Massachusetts Institute of Technology meteorology professor, actually a pretty good one, I guess, who developed the concept, never intended for it to be applied in this way. Indeed, he meant to convey the opposite point. The purpose of this provocative question, he said, was to illustrate the idea that some complex dynamical systems exhibit unpredictable behavior such that small variances in the initial conditions could have profound and widely divergent effects on the system's outcomes. I've also seen on another article, I might also be going through that, I don't know if it is actually this article, but the funny thing is that science in general tries to make everything kind of predictable. Everything is about predicting some things, even just the unpredictable. Something that we did, something that we still do and whatever. But the funny thing is, the butterfly effect and the chaos theory is basically like kind of the opposite, kind of having something that is unpredictable, that nobody knows what will happen. The thing is, in terms of all the examples that I've just been talking about, like the pendulum and whatever, it is really like you can, at least there, it just really, really, really depends on if they've done the pendulum or this pendulum experiment the right quote-unquote way, or if they've done it just really sloppy. And then, if every single run was exactly the same thing, exactly the same run, which I do not even expect, and I do not even know, because it is about some change in the initial force, and if you kind of swing the pendulum the exact same way, it's probably gonna swing the exact same way, every single time. But, yeah, never mind, I don't know. I don't know. So where did I stop? Super duper. So the purpose of his provocative question, he said, was to illustrate the idea that some complex dynamical systems, I've actually read that, haven't I? Yeah, I have. Because of the sensitivity of these systems, outcomes are unpredictable. So this is what I meant. It is about unpredictable stuff, even though it has never been in science this way. Always, and I think it just also makes sense. We've always been trying to just make everything predictable and everything understandable and everything kind of, here it is. This is how it works and whatever. But this, it seems not to be the case for the butterfly effect. This idea became the basis for a branch of mathematicians or mathematics known as chaos theory, which has been applied in countless scenarios since its introduction. Lorentz insight called into question laws introduced as early as 1687 by Sir Isaac Newton, suggesting that nature is a probabilistic mechanical system, a clockwork universe. Similarly, Lorentz challenged Pierre-Simon Laplace, funny thing, because this again is then now about just predicting some things, probabilities, because you might know Laplace, and calculating things with the Laplace probability. Funny thing. So who argued that unpredictability has no place in the universe? Obviously, because his calculations are all about predictability, asserting that if we knew all the physical laws of nature, then nothing would be uncertain and the future, as the past, would be present to our eyes. Pretty philosophical, but it still makes sense. Lorentz discovered that this deterministic interpretation of the universe could not account for the imprecision in human measurement of physical phenomena. He observed, and this is, I'm going to read. So he observed that nature's independent cause and effect relationships are too complex to resolve. To approximate the most likely outcomes for such complex systems as weather patterns, he began using sets of slightly different starting conditions to conduct parallel meteorological simulations. This method is still used today to generate our daily weather forecasts. So I'm gonna read it again. To approximate the most likely outcomes for such complex systems as weather patterns, he began using sets of slightly different starting conditions to conduct parallel meteorological simulation. This method is still blah 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 blah. On the cover of this issue, we pose a question. If we could rerun life from the beginning, would it turn out the same? So in Replaying Evolution, which seems to be a book or a movie or something, Zachary Blount addresses this question through empirical analysis of the long-term evolution experiment, an ongoing study in experimental evolution, now approaching 30 years of investigation, which is definitely something, that has been tracking genetic changes in several initially identical populations of bacteria, and there is a name to the bacteria, and I can't pronounce it, therefore I'm just leaving it on its own. He investigates the role of small differences in the evolutionary substrate on the outcome of the process. Interestingly, in anyone can become a troll. In anyone become a troll, Justin Cheng, Christian someone, Shuri, whatever, and Michael Bernstein explain that the likelihood ordinary people will cultivate certain online behaviors also depends on a specific set of circumstances, ones that neither guarantee nor exclude the possibility of becoming an aggressor. In the end, because this is somehow the end of this article, at least as far as I can understand. I've also found another very actually extremely new and recent, let's say actually recent articles, on the butterfly effect, which is from interestingengineering.org, I guess, .com. So if you want to check out all the things, so all the links, all the websites yourself, they all should be down in the show notes if you're on the podcast, and they should all be down in the description if you are on the YouTube video, so that you can just, read through them on your own, because maybe I just misread something, or maybe today's reading game wasn't as good as just yesterday, therefore you weren't able to understand me whatsoever. There are so many variables, just please check it out if you want to. So I'm gonna reread it again, So what is the butterfly effect? Simple explanation. One of the best ways to understand a complex idea is to make an easy to understand metaphor. In the case of chaos theory, the term the butterfly effect was created to attempt just such a thing. Okay, and now the exact same example. Does the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil set off a tornado in Texas? Is it doing that? Could we say that? It isn't meant to imply that this could actually happen. Just that a small event like this at the right time and place could, in theory, trigger a set of events that will ultimately culminate. What does culminate even mean? Culminate means climax. So come to a climax. Come to a climax. This is what I need. In the formation of a hurricane on the other side of the world. This was coined by one Edward Lawrence almost 45 years ago during the 139th meeting of the Association for Advancement of Science. It would prove to be very popular and has been embraced by popular culture ever since. He was a meteorology professor at MIT, and he developed the concept but never actually intended for it to be applied the way it has all too commonly been used. Funnily enough, yeah. Whilst it sounds a little ridiculous as a concept, it is meant to be taken literally. It is not meant to be taken literally. The butterfly effect metaphor is simply meant to demonstrate that little insignificant events can lead to significant results over time. Something really important that I should maybe point out there is the word over time. It doesn't mean, or it has never meant that small change now will create immediate big changes somewhere else. It is going to take time. And I guess in this case, the pendulum is actually a very great experiment. Just because in the first place, in the very first seconds of the whole experience, nothing changed. Everything was the same. Nothing was somehow different. But after some time, everything was different indeed. Everything changed. The whole pendulum swung in a different way. The whole pendulum was somehow differently swinging, doing something else. I don't know. But yeah, it just doesn't mean that it's going to be just an immediate change. So I guess this should be enough about the chaos theory or these things. Please check out the rest of the article if you're interested. I think it is actually a pretty good one. If you haven't had a look at it, just go through the whole one. But I think it's a pretty interesting thing. So thanks for my buddy for pointing that out. I might be actually doing another one of those because today has been like a little bit of an just not really satisfying episode for me, at least. As a person, as me, it has been not really satisfying. So therefore, there might also be another episode tomorrow or even today, just because I want to talk about it. But just because we've always been doing it, or we always will do it, we are going through some questions on Quora, or at least one question on Quora, and talk about this one. So let's actually see. Becoming successful. What are some uncommon habits that contribute to success? Uncommon habits, I think uncommon habits are really, really rare, because most often, at my point of view, at least, success is just because of things that you might know. Discipline, working hard, smart, enough, whatsoever, just doing shit, then just loving what you do, being already good at what you're doing, just actually trying to be the best at what you're doing. Very important. If this might be a habit or not, we could debate about that. But patience, then of course gratitude, happiness, health. These are all habits. In the end, these are words. But these words come from habits. And those habits, you have to just train, or I don't know what you should be doing with them. You should just have these habits, to actually kind of get to the place where you're going to be healthy, happy, grateful, and all those things. Because at my point of view, it is really important to be happy, healthy, grateful, patient. I was also talking about being good at what you're doing, which really helps. Because the thing is, if you're not good at what you're willing to be good at, already, then it's going to be just a pretty long, hard time to actually get really good, or at least the best at what you're trying to be the best at. It's really going to take some time. And even though it might be worth it, it could actually even not be the case that you're going to get there. Just because it takes so much time and effort and work. It could actually be the case that you will never ever be the best in this space, even though you're working just your fucking ass off. It could be the thing, theoretically. Something else that I could be thinking about just really quickly, I don't know. I think this is actually it. I think this is actually it with this episode. I do hope that you've liked it. I really hope that you've liked this episode, that there's some value in this episode for you. But yeah, I wish you the best health, of happiness, and also success. And I also hope that you're going to remind yourself on how you're going to be remembered. So basically your legacy, because we can totally shape our own legacy. Yeah. Even though, if you want to be remembered as a good person, no matter how good you are, no matter how generous and kind you are, there's still going to be someone that just hates you. Just because you are who you are and just because you do what you do. I don't know. I think this is just we as human beings, I guess. Also think about your purpose. And 3 questions that might help you with that are: why are you here? So here on this planet, what are you trying to change? And what is bothering you the most? And with that being said, I'll see you the next time. Thanks a lot. Please subscribe to the podcast and also to the YouTube channel so that you never miss out on anything. And I'm going to see you the next time. I at least hope. I see you.